Hello and welcome back to Puck on the Parkway, New Jersey Devils hockey all the time. I'm back with the boys. I'm James Burley, joined by Daniel Ravane and Nick Guzman. Not a lot has happened this week, we must admit, but maybe that's just because we got spoiled with two ridiculous weeks of some off-season frenzy here in the Garden State. Nick, I'll throw it over to you. Good to see you again, my man. How are you doing on this lovely July 7th Friday?
I'm doing great. I'm excited tomorrow morning. I'm one of the hosts of One on One at WFUV, and we're talking some puck, some off-season puck, some Metro puck. And I think one of the things we're going to talk about is who is now in the best position to challenge the Carolina Hurricanes at the top of the Metro, and I believe it is the New Jersey Devils. Things have slowed down quite a bit this week, but the moves have been made. There's still probably some to be made, but I think the Devils are looking so good right now. It's an exciting time just sort of to I think the storm has passed a little bit in terms of the offseason frenzy for the Devils. They did their spending early, but now you just get to look and see what the roster looks like and speculate, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. Like nothing really happened. We got to relax for a whole week, which is different because usually this time of year we're all over the place. Who we signing? Who we trading for? We got all our business done before the draft, so this week was nice to not worry about anything. So
And we didn't have to worry about the draft, too. Nick, you talked about it last week that the NHL draft just 4 years ago was the most exciting part, even less than 4 years ago. We picked second last year. What am I saying? It was arguably the most exciting part of our season. And I can remember where I will go back 5 years ago now, maybe six if I'm doing the math in my head correctly, that no, five. That our most exciting free agent move was getting Nikita Gusev to sign for us from the KHL. And we all know how that worked out. A tremendously talented player, but I digress. The biggest splash that we didn't get a chance to talk about last week, arguably, in the entire offseason for the New Jersey Devils, they brought back the Swiss man who's going to be buddies with Nico Hischier on that top line, we assume. Timo Meier, after getting acquired from the San Jose Sharks via the trade deadline earlier this season, returns 8 years, $8.8 million. We were talking about it. If we can get it under 9, we would be over the moon. And now that the dust has settled a little bit and we can look at this maybe a little more objectively, I'm still over the moon. Timo Meier is back. We're going to find out whether he wears 96 or 28. But either way, that's the only thing we don't know. We know he's going to come back. He's going to score goals. He's going to provide a different look to that top line. He's going to be powerful. And he's a 40-goal scorer in his prime. Nothing better than this move for the Devils so far this offseason, including Jesper Bratt, if you ask me. So, Daniel, I'll throw it over to you first. Are you as pumped about bringing Timo back as I am?
of course, I mean, like after we recorded, we didn't think anything was gonna come across the line. Next day, draft day. Comes out, Timo Meyer, re-sign. We're just like, whoa, okay. What's the number? 8.8. Oh man. Throw a party. Build Tom Fitzgerald a statue because I mean, we don't have a single forward on our roster making over 9 mil. Just think about that. Our most expensive player on the whole team is making 9 mil, and that's Dougie Hamilton. Just think about that. Just compare that to Toronto, who have 3 players over 11 mil, about, I believe. So now we have all this breathing room going forward, especially with the cap going up. I mean, we have our own core four signed for the long term. It's just good to see that Timo saw the plan and wanted to stay here first, and then accepted to take maybe a bit less than what his market value was because we all thought that he probably could get 9.5 on the open market. So I'm glad that he's back and he's back for 8 years, man.
Yeah, I've had time to sort of objectively look over the deal and take a step back, and I'm still so excited. It's like the greatest thing ever. Like for all of our core to not necessarily take pay cuts, but I think if each one of the guys who've re-signed recently, whether it's Hughes or Brad or Meyer, were to go elsewhere in free agency and try to make as much money as they possibly could, they would make more than what we're paying them right now. So the fact that they all want to be here and be a part of what we're building just makes it even more exciting. And then just that we've touched on it before, but just the different look that Timo gives us on offense in comparison to everything else and everything else that we have. There's just so much to be excited for. And you talked about the number that he might the possible number change for Timo. If I'm him, I'd want the change. I saw this on social media. When you got a 96, a 56, and an 86, all left-handed shots, it can get a little confusing sometimes, all high numbers too. So maybe Timo will want to reevaluate that, but he can do whatever he wants now that he's locked up for the long-term future. So, I mean, Timo Meier is going to be a Devil for the next 8 years. It's just music to my ears.
Man, if you told me that this was going to be the turn that the Devils would take just 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you that it would happen this quickly and just this, what's the word I'm looking for? This successfully so quickly, because they have really jumped to the top tier of teams in the National Hockey League. People are calling them a Stanley Cup contender before the season even starts. We said GM of the year already to Tom Fitzgerald. It's been a very, very, very good and inspiring and just overall successful offseason to begin. We had expected it to take a little bit of a downturn now that some of the big moves are out of the way, but Tom Fitzgerald keeps pushing the buttons of the media saying, well, we may go after a goalie, we may add more on the wings, and they haven't done a press conference with Tom yet that has wrapped up the post or the offseason moves, which they normally do. Have they already made all these transactions? But I think they're going to make some more moves. Probably not as big splashes as Bratt, Toffoli, and Meier, all of which are very, very welcome. But they had to do some other business too, and that includes filling in the bottom the bottom line and the forward core, and that includes the super buddies, the Bash brothers, if you will, of Michael McLeod and Nathan Bastian. McLeod comes back for one more year, 1.4 mil AAV. Bastian 1 year, 1.35.
2 years.
2 years, 1.35, excuse me. I think that this was probably the right call. Tom Fitzgerald talks about having a great top 9. I think you have a great top 12 with McLeod, Bastian, and Lazar as your fourth line, if that is what it's going to end up looking like. As I'm sure most of us expect that to be the fourth line. And Mike McLeod, not only did he really step up in the playoffs, he was an important fixture in the face-off circle and on special teams, both of these guys. And again, we talk about Timo Meier bringing a different look compared to the rest of our forwards. We really need some grit on this team. We're still a bit small and a bit young, and I'd like to have some guys that wouldn't be afraid to not only just drop the gloves, but dig into the corners and play a little dump and chase hockey, because that is a speed game in and of itself. We're going to make teams play with this fourth line on the ice. Defenses are going to be facing their own goal. They're going to be turning around behind the red line, and that is when you really start to open up space in front of the net. And I think this line is going to be incredibly successful this year from start to finish, not just in the second round of the playoffs like they were for most of last year. So, Nick, I'll throw it over to you. McLeod and Bass are back. Is this, again, are you guys just as excited as me about this one, or am I just being too biased and too overly joyful at the moment?
No, I think there's definitely reason to be joyful. I saw a lot of, like, I guess commentary you could call it on social media when it was first announced that McLeod and Bastian hadn't immediately signed. That some takes where fourth liners are expendable in the modern NHL, and there's a lot of guys who can do what a fourth liner does, which is true to an extent. But to me, when I look at someone like Michael McLeod, that's my ideal guy on the fourth line. I mean, to have that high of a faceoff percentage, the speed. If he needs to, he'll drop the gloves. I think he's really accepted. He was a first round pick. People forget that's where the speed comes from. The hands aren't quite there, but he has that kind of talent that he shows it at some point. And I think the fact that Michael McLeod has really embraced that role to be the fourth liner that this team needs. I think he really looked in the playoffs the best as he has in a Devils uniform. And, I think people do forget he only scored 4 goals in the whole regular season last year. So I think if that goal production, it's not necessarily what we need him for, but if that could go up even a little bit, then that's just such a great value. And Nate Bastian, we saw when he was not in the lineup, the Devils struggled. And I don't think that's that might be one of those stats that's one of the weird coincidence that doesn't really have anything to do with, the way the team's playing. But I think he's a valuable fourth line piece. Him and McLeod together, we know how close they are in their relationship off the ice. pair that with Lazar, and to me, that's a very formidable fourth line. And I think if either one of them were to walk, like, yes, we could have signed, any other number of fourth liners to a low AAV contract to fill that void. But I don't think they can do the things that Michael McLeod and Nate Bastian can do and what they bring to this team. I think also continuity is very important. You think about how much someone like Jack Hughes and all those guys love Michael McLeod and Nate Bastian and what they do for the team and what they provide in the locker room. I think now that you're trying to go for a cup at this point, and continuity is great. And I'm really excited that those two are back. It seems like we're going to say bye to Jesper Boquist, though, which is a little bit disappointing. I like Boquist's game, but we've got McLeod and Bastian back. And I think when you look at our fourth line, people keep talking about our top six and what they can do with Toffoli brought in now. Now, like James was saying, if you look at the top 12, this whole forward core, really has an opportunity to do something special this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we brought those two back because Nick hit it on the head, man. You can't have too much turnover in a team, and these two bring a lot more to the team. Obviously, they bring what they do on the ice, and they bring really good vibes in the locker room. We always talk about vibes, but you can't just have vibes. They actually bring it on the ice as well. So that's good that they bring both of those things, and what we've seen them. What both of them can do. One, they play really good fourth line minutes. They can go into the corner and get the puck. Two, they can play PK, both of them. Three, Michael McLeod's one of the best face-off takers in the whole league. So that's just a skill in itself. Like I've been calling him face-off merchant all year because in overtime he starts overtime for us to take the face-off. And almost every single time he's won that opening face-off and gets right off the ice. And that was one of our big successes this year in overtime, was him winning faceoffs, getting the puck back to Jack Hughes. So I'm glad that they brought him back. I'm surprised that McLeod only got 1 year. Maybe that's something that he wants to prove that he could keep doing it again and maybe get like a bigger contract, say next offseason when the cap goes up. But I'm glad both of them are back. They're big pieces to what the bottom six does.
I'm glad you mentioned McLeod only getting 1 year, Daniel, and I'm glad, Nick, that you brought up the record with the Devils with him out of the roster, because right when we started to go on that skid in December following the big winning streak, the 13 game that should have been 14 if not for the refs calling off all those goals against the Maple Leafs. The Devils went on a terrible run, and Nathan Bastian was out of the lineup for the entirety of it. And when he came back, they went on another winning streak. So yes, maybe it could have been a coincidence, but there is a purpose to having these guys in the team and having the same guys. Continuity is a big factor. And as for McLeod only getting a year, he took a massive step in the playoffs, a step that started getting him third line minutes. So the expectation, I think, for him is, can I bump myself up into the third line? When a guy like Jesper Boquist, who was taxied between not only being a healthy scratch a lot, but also the third and fourth lines, I think McLeod sees himself filling that void in the third line a little bit more. Now that the Devils have brought in Tyler Toffoli, and since Fitzgerald says they may not be done on the wings, I anticipate that they may bring another type of winger that can play on the third line to take up another spot for McLeod to potentially jump up. But because he took that step in the playoffs, I think he's expecting himself to take another step this regular season. I anticipate he scores more than 4 goals, and I think this fourth line has a really good year, and Michael McLeod is going to be a big part of that. With that said, that may wrap up the Devils forward core for the year. We don't entirely know. We're not 100% sure. Alex Holtz, Nolan Foote. I mean, there's options here and there to fill in what would be the 12th forward, because right now I think we have 11 out of 12 that we can already pencil in.
Starters, yeah.
And now, if we talk about defense, the Devils I think this one caught me by surprise. I don't know about you guys. Bringing in Colin Miller from the Dallas Stars, 5th rounder, $1.85 million. He is a very underrated player. He was, I remember him first being picked up in the expansion draft by the Vegas Golden Knights, and then scoring in the Stanley Cup final later that year, before taking a puck to the face and breaking his nose. I think it was Ovechkin hit him, right?
Probably.
Something like that.
I would guess so.
That was my earliest memory of him. And because the Western Conference feels so foreign to me a lot, I can't say I watched a lot of his play in Dallas, but he's a player that I've known for a while to be underappreciated and underrated. He's bounced around I think the Devils might be his fifth team now over the course of a 10-year career. Originally with the LA Kings. I really like this move, especially because it takes pressure off a guy like Kevin Ball or a guy like even Brendan Smith, who's going to be coming in that seventh defenseman role. And Timo Meier now, this could potentially take off some time from him because we don't know what exactly his expectation is at the NHL level yet. So this move brings about a lot of question marks, but it's another player that I think will provide good value to this Devils team. Daniel, how are we feeling about Colin Miller?
I mean, I didn't see them bringing in another defenseman. I can't lie. I'm not gonna lie. I thought they would give Nemec every opportunity to get that third pairing role. But you know what? This is a very smart move from Fitz, because you know what? Now you're pushing the kid. Now you're gonna say, hey, if you want to make the NHL, now you got to go get it. Now you got to go actually beat an NHLer to get this spot. Colin Miller's not no scrub. I mean, as
Far
you
from
said,
it.
yeah, as you said, James, like he put up 10 goals that season they went to the cup. So I mean, he can put up points. Maybe that's not his role nowadays, but he's a really confident third line pairing defenseman on the right side. He can get a job done, especially next to Kevin Ball. Imagine Colin Miller and Kevin Ball next to each other. I mean, that's a great third pairing. So I mean, it's smart from Fitzgerald because he kind of hedges his bet, saying, because all he said is his people are telling him Nemec is going to push for a role. You know what? Maybe if he's not ready for a role, he can go back. He can easily go back down to Utica, play some games, and he'll be the first call up if anything happens on that right side. So I applaud the move because you're only giving up a 2025 fifth round pick. So like that's kind of nothing. And even if Nemec does take that role, he could either be a rotational guy still on the roster, or you can flip him again for a team that needs a defenseman. You can probably get that fifth round pick back. So I'm fine with the move. I'm actually really happy for it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Now you're taking some pressure off of Nemec. He might have been our second round pick last year, but he's still 19. And I think if you go into a season expecting a 19-year-old to sort of just be solidified in your roster, like what if that goes bad? What if he isn't quite ready? Which it would be totally fine, totally understandable. This way, if he's not ready, he goes back down to the minor leagues, and you've got quality NHL defensemen, whether it's Colin Miller or Brendan Smith, to sort of fill that void. I think the other thing is when you look at the pairing, say it was Ball and Nemec on that third pairing, and then Luke Hughes and Marino the second pairing, Siegenthaler, Hamilton at the top. I think at least if I see that was going to be the pairings, I think I see three penalty killers in it. One of Hamilton, Nemec, or Hughes would have to kill penalties. Because you think about it, Ball, Siegenthaler, Marino. And you need a fourth. So I think Hamilton could do it, but he doesn't want to.
No, he could not.
He cannot
I don't
do
think.
it.
I'd
I think
rather
he could do it maybe more. Yeah. But so if you're relying on either one of Hughes, Nemec, and Hamilton to go on the penalty kill, and I think that's a big reason too. Now you have Colin Miller, a guy who probably Nemec, but think about that too as a 19-year-old rookie who needs to come in and start killing penalties too. I think having Colin Miller in that option, along with Brendan Smith, I think it just gives the Devils a lot more options defensively. And you know what? If Nemec comes out and starts out the season with the team and is so awesome that you can't take him out of the lineup, you don't take him out of the lineup. And then that works too. This just provides a little bit more of a safety net for what the Devils are trying to do defensively.
I didn't even think about getting 4 penalty killing defensemen, especially 2 left-hand shots, 2 right-hand shots. And that's what Colin Miller brings. I was anticipating that if it was to be Timo Meier to start the season, that he would be one of those guys. But you're absolutely right, Nick, that this not only puts a little pressure on him to go earn a position, it also takes a little pressure off of him defensively, where that maybe he would be put into roles that he's not quite ready to be in yet. And we see that happening with young players, especially young defensemen across the National Hockey League all the time. And players just aren't ready for it. And some are, because everybody's trying to find the next, Moritz Seider, and it's just not here nor there. With that said, we're going to talk a little bit about some youngsters now with the NHL draft. Daniel, once again, you're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting in this segment. And before we get into it, who are the 3 names that you wanted to take away from the draft first and foremost?
Yeah, so obviously we only had, I think, what did we have, like 5 or 6 picks? Because I know we traded one at the end of the draft, and that was a good moment. If you guys didn't see it,
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Fitzgerald traded the Devils' last pick to Nashville, so David Poile, right? David Poile
Mhm.
could make the last pick of his career, and Tom Fitzgerald was Nashville's first captain. So that was a good moment. You can go look up that video on Twitter. So yeah, first pick for the Devils was in the second round, and we drafted Lenny Aho. I don't know if I said that last name right, but he's from Finland. He's a right winger, right-handed shot, and he's from Asset in Liga. When you look at his stats, I mean pretty decent for what I think he was 18 for most of the season, 17, 18, and he put up 21 points in 51 games. Obviously, if you don't know Liga, it's one of the hardest defense. It's kind of defensive in Liga, and they don't give much playing time to young players because obviously it's a really competitive league. So for him to put up 21 points is pretty good. That's pretty decent numbers. So he'll be over there for the next probably 2 years. I think he has a contract until 24, 25. So after that, he'll probably come over. And he's also said after the draft that he still has some things to work on, obviously. So he'll be over there working on his game. So if you like watching Finnish hockey, there's another guy you can go look at. Um, then our next pick wasn't until the fourth round, and we picked a guy named Cameron Squires from the Cape Breton Eagles in the Q. So the Quebec Major Juniors. Played most of the year as a 17-year-old. So just keep that in your mind. He turned 18 in April, and he put up 64 points in 67 games. Obviously, those aren't like gaudy numbers or anything, but if you compare that to his 16-year-old year, he put up 30 more points. Plus, you compare it to a current Devil in his 17-year-old year, Dawson Mercer had the same amount of points, and we all know what Dawson Mercer is. Obviously, Squires isn't. He's only 6 foot. He's got to probably put some weight on. He's only a buck 65 right now, but I mean, just looking at that pick as a fourth round pick, I'm not mad at it. Last year, if he was in the Devils system, he would have been top 5 for points per game as a Devils prospect. So that's good. That's good depth right there. We'll see what he does over the next couple of years in the queue. And then the last guy I'll talk about was our last pick of the draft in the 6th round. His name is Daniil Karpovich, left-handed defenseman, Belarus. Actually moved to the MHL this season, last season, and put up the 4th highest points for a MHL defenseman last year. So just think about all the MHL. That's the Russian Junior League. So 4th best points per game as his first year in Russia. I mean, that's sounds pretty good to me. He had what do you have? Let's see. He had 10 goals and 25 assists in 41 games. We'll see what he keeps doing. He was actually on one of the best teams over in the MHL, so that's good that he'll get that development. And he's actually left-footed, 6'3", one of the heavier guys as well. He's 209, so he's already built he's got a man body already, so that's good. He's probably done growing, but I mean, those are the 3 guys that I would say I would take away from the draft as our better picks.
And, Daniil Karpovich brings in some more Belarusian blood, which we just lost with Yegor Sharangovich getting traded over to Calgary for the likes of Tyler Toffoli. And Dan, thank you for being a little more into the prospect pool than Nick and I can say we are. I appreciate that insight, and I'm sure some of the listeners today will. Cam Squires is the one that I was really excited about because of that Dawson Mercer connection. Immediately when he was drafted, 64 points in the queue. Oh my goodness! Or in juniors, I don't know if they were in the same league.
Yeah, same league.
They were in the queue, and then Cam Squires. Did we just draft Dawson Mercer again? And that's going to make my day because Dawson Mercer is not only a very bright young prospect who's already blossomed into NHL caliber as the 2020 first round pick, but he is now a permanent fixture of the top 6 for this Devils team. So to have that potential back within the ranks is something good to look forward to. We are getting close to the finish here today. We're going to go back to something that we've talked about almost ad nauseum. I won't say ad nauseum, but to a certain extent at this point. And that's the goaltending issue. And I say issue, but is it really an issue right now? I think the issue is maybe a bit harsh, but the fact of the matter is there's still talk there about the Devils potentially bringing in a goaltender. It will likely not be through the free agent market because goalies are getting snatched up left, right, and center out here in the National Hockey League. And the Devils already have two that they want to stick with. One of the prevailing theories as to why they may move for a goaltender is not out of necessity, but out of the fact that Akira Schmid may not be ready to carry the workload of a full NHL season, even if he's splitting games with Vitek Vanacek. Doing it 30 to 35 times during a regular season is much, much different than doing it 82 times. So that is good that they are managing the young goaltender. He's just 23 and his workload, but I really like his game, and I think he could be the answer long term in between the pipes for the New Jersey Devils as this core wants to make a long-term investment into being a cup contender. With that said, the name Connor Hellebuyck is still the loudest name being thrown out there. And right behind that, joining that, is Johnny Gibber of the Anaheim Ducks. That's John Gibson, if you guys don't know his nickname that I just gave him. He's also a very competent American goaltender that could very well carry a franchise and has for a while. It just so happens that each of the franchises that these people have been the franchise goaltenders for are bad teams. The New Jersey Devils have just turned a corner and are a good team. And having an elite goaltender, Nick, you said this, is never a bad thing, even if it's not necessary. So now that, where there's smoke, there's fire. These talks are happening. We know that there's interest from both of these goaltenders. We heard the John Gibson statement that came out that his team immediately denied that he would never play another game for the Anaheim Ducks. I don't know if there's truth to that, but the fact of the matter is both of these guys could lace up in between the pipes of the New Jersey Devils sometime soon. We don't know. I would put the percentage on either of them coming at about a 35% right now. And I think Hellebuyck is the leader in this race, and Gibson is second. Who wants to take this one first? Because I think I've spoken my piece here.
Yeah, I'll go on this. So, to be fair, I've switched up so hard on this topic. Obviously, last week when we were talking, I was like, you know what? Nah, we don't need Connor Hellebuyck. That's probably not going to happen. He's going to cost too much. But as every day keeps going on, to be honest, I thought we would sign a goalie in free agency. So that didn't happen. So now plans are changing. So maybe you do go for a Connor Hellebuyck if the right deal is there. I think that's the whole message Fitch is kind of putting out there. If the deal is right for him, he's not going to overpay for this. That's not going to happen. He's not going to do that. So if there's a right deal out there for any of these two goalies, I think he'll go for it. Obviously, Hellebuyck has the 1 year left at just over $6 million. Gibson has 4 years left at 6.4. So I don't know how it works with Gibson. Maybe you can get a deal with Hellebuyck and Winnipeg and go from there. Maybe you sign him after the year, like you did with Timo Meier. I don't know. I've kind of turned my tune though. If you can get Connor Hellebuyck, I think you do it because, as someone told me, the Devils are a goaltender away from being legit Stanley Cup winners, if not the favorite.
I think I still think Vanacek and Schmid can do a job. And I think the recent stuff about Schmid not being able to carry a workload of a full season, that's a little concerning. And I mean, it's totally understandable considering just like his career trajectory that he's never played a full NHL season. It's a lot. And the fact that they see that now, I was kind of with you, Daniel, that I thought free agency was going to be the way to go and get somebody for cheaper and not have to give them a ton of assets, but then have that security blanket of an extra goalie. But now it seems like the options are go big or go home. And I'd be fine with us going home, but also I think if you were to look at our roster up and down, and then you stick Connor Hellebuyck in net, or even you stick John Gibson in net, it just takes it to the next level. And I think Winnipeg is obviously going to try to get a lot because they think they can, but I very much trust Tom Fitzgerald to not overpay, because if we go into this season, it's not a situation where if we go into this next season with Vanacek and Schmid, then that's like a failure and that's awful and that's going to totally derail our season. We'll be fine.
Exactly.
But we will be much, much better with Hellebuck or Gibson. So, I mean, if the price is right, I think you obviously have to pull the trigger. I just think, Winnipeg and even Anaheim, I think they're going to look at who we have in goal and look at the rest of our team and realize that they can sort of try to drive that price up as much as they can. But I trust, I think if the deal's right, Tom Fitzgerald is definitely going to make the move. He's proved that he's not shy in terms of making things happen if he thinks the deal's right for the team. But I think maybe some people outside the Devils, on social media are making it seem like this is a make or break type thing where this is the thing that gets the Devils, really over the hump. I still think if it's Schmid and if it's Vanacek, we're okay. And I think, from watching those guys play, I think they can handle it and we'll be fine. But, if we were to get Hellebuck, I'm definitely would not complain, because that just makes that position so much more secure. But, if come this fall, it's Vanacek and Schmid, the Devils, I think, can still do a lot of damage this season.
I'm with you, Nick. Yeah, it would be great to have a piece like Connor Hellebuck in goal, but I don't think we need to get there. Vanacek, 33 wins. Akira Schmid, 2 shutouts against the Rangers in the playoffs. Both have shown signs, that they can really carry this team in between the pipes, and that's it. That's all we really need. Cap Friendly has us as only a little above 5 million projected cap space at the moment. I'm not sure how perfect their metrics are. Cap Friendly does great work. I don't know how incredibly close that can get to the exact. I mean, I guess it's right. It seems correct to me.
We still have four roster spots available. So
four roster spots available, and we don't have all 12 forwards yet. I don't know if we can bring in a goaltender, but I mean, look, if someone goes the other way, maybe we bring someone back. Maybe they retain salary. There's a lot that can go which way or the other here. We will wrap up in just a minute, real quick, on NHL Network earlier this week. Ken Danico, Mr. Devil, Dano himself, was on, and he was asked the question, who does he think will win the Metropolitan Division while it's still early? He said it was the Carolina Hurricanes division to lose, and I wanted to get your thoughts really quickly before we wrap up. We don't have to give predictions to who wins the division at the end of the year, but is that correct? Is this still the Carolina Hurricanes division? They just brought in Michael Bunting, potentially Vladimir Tarasenko. We don't know about that. But the Devils have made some moves too, in addition to already breathing down their necks by just 1 point in the regular season last year. So, Nick, I'll give this one to you first. Is this the Hurricanes division? And I remind you that we are very, very close to running out of time.
Yes, I'm very confident that the New Jersey Devils can win the Metro this season. That being said, you don't win a division title in the offseason. This is still Carolina's division to lose. And I think Dano saying that is totally okay and respectable. I think for even us to recognize that doesn't mean none of us are questioning New Jersey's ability to win its division. They can do that, no question. They were 1 point away last year. But Carolina's proven time and time again, what they do in the playoffs, that's another story. But they're sort of the cream of the crop of the Metro right now. And until we knock them off that perch, it is totally their division to lose.
Totally agree. We all think that we could win this division, but you know what? They won it last year. So we have to go. We have to go win it from them. So they are the favorite right now, but we're right behind you, buds. We're coming.
Motivation.
Yep, motivation.
A little bit of bulletin board material, a little bit of a reality check. We hyped up the Devils only. We haven't criticized a single thing about the Devils since we started this podcast. Not
Once
that
the season starts, we'll get nasty. We'll get nasty.
Yeah.
But that's okay. But I think it's important that we remember the Carolina Hurricanes are the fathers of the Metropolitan Division right now, and it's going to take the young guns of the New Jersey Devils to change that narrative on the ice this season. We can't wait. But with that, that's another episode of Puck on the Parkway. For Daniel Rebane and Nick Guzman, I'm James Burley. Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you guys next time.